Welcome back to Spartan Up, the podcast. I'm Sefra. I got Colonel Nye and Johnny Waite and our producer, Marion, behind the camera. This week, we're with Steve Lulek, a great mentor, amazing naturalist. The guy knows everything when you're in the woods. Navigation, I don't know. He's just like one of those people that just when you watch him and you walk behind him, you're learning. And he's such a cool guy.
Well, good. I can't wait to hear it then.
Yeah, Steve Lulek. Let's listen.
Here for Spartan Up podcast in my favorite place in the whole world, Pittsfield, Vermont, at the farm. I'm with Steve Lulek. Who the heck is Steve Lulek? That's what I said. He's ex-military?
Yes, retired military. After I retired from the military, I was always passionate about taking the things that I've learned in the military and having that as a job. And the adventure world is something that I am very passionate about, but authentic adventure events, and I really wanted to create that. And so with my wife as my right-hand person and making things happen for me, I had these ideas and this passion. Things kind of fell into place for me to achieve these rock climbing gyms, one then the other over time, and then with that create a guide service, and with that guide service to have both introduction to adventure, real adventures, but then to make offshoots of that to educational adventures.
Why do we need adventures? I mean, we got TVs, we got iPhones, movies on demand, it seems pretty old school to go out on an adventure.
Well, people are losing the disconnect of what they can really do from pushing themselves, but also the disconnect from just sitting down in the old cliche of smelling the roses, but to actually listen to the trees, to understand what this environment can do and to calm our inner soul. So I talk about peace and ebb and flow, and to be able to push yourself, but then also to relax and to find your balance in life. Rock climbing gives you that if you really get with a good climbing instructor. It gives you that opportunity to understand what balance is versus just powering through things and powering, but to take the time to understand your own body and your movement and your mind and body connect.
I mean, do you see transformations take place?
Yes. Both with youth at risk, with corporate leaders, really with anybody.
Just going outside.
Yeah, just going outside. Just for this simple thing, going out and starting a fire with they call it two pieces of wood. There's more to that.
I mean, you have Duraflame, though. You don't need to start a fire with
exactly. But
the old-fashioned way.
Exactly. But there is that sense that if somebody can show you how to take a flint and steel and create a fire that then can last for 5, 10, 15 minutes, and then you get warmth and the ability to boil water, and all of a sudden this own dependability and the connect between you and the world, it's a really self-fulfilling. I mean, it makes you feel good.
It's a game changer.
Yeah.
And so you taught these skills to the military?
Well, yes and no. I was blessed throughout the military. I was a drill sergeant. I ran the drill sergeant school. I did go through sapper school. So I got exposure to some tough structural environments there. But then the military was starting this mountaineering school. And that gave me the sense to understand the difference between just going through things or really understanding things. And so at the school, we really tried to teach how to do it. So it's logical, and you're doing it because it makes sense. How to climb a mountain, how to climb a rock, how to survive in a mountain, and survive with purpose. And so what I then did is I took those skills when I retired and just took them to the next level with my own personal studies, my own personal experiences, and then taking people out and watching how they react with them.
It's pretty transformative. I know when I moved here with the family on this farm, and we went out into the woods, and sometimes I'd go out for days, and I don't know, like you said, there is some inner peace or something that goes on when you're out there. And it's not necessarily because you're sweating or breathing. I don't know. There's just something that happens.
Right. There is.
Right?
There is. And a lot of us don't know what to do. You know, it's like somebody was saying to me yesterday, like, Steve, where do I go? Where do I get this training? Where do I get this knowledge that you have? And it's becoming a lost art. There are people that can do it by the book. But when you go into the woods, a lot of times the book doesn't make any sense, and so it's hard to find somebody that still can do these sort of things, how to navigate properly, how to stop and create your shelter, build a fire, or how to climb a rock or a mountain, but do it with creating this inner peace so that you have an opportunity to be relaxed and in balance and then give back in a beautiful way.
What would you recommend to those out there watching that are trying to figure out how to get motivated, just in general in life, how to be successful, how to have better relationships? Because that's what the whole podcast is about. In your experience in the military and then teaching these thousands of people, what tips can we give?
Well, I think you really got to know who you are. And it may just go back to who you are and what are you here for. I mean, I teach at a local university, and it's fascinating. I ask them, a lot of my classes, which is not part of it, but I get into it, is like, why are you here? And what is your purpose? And if you know your purpose, then that helps you stay on a track that makes sense. And as other things start popping up and start to pull at you, they're not part of what your purpose is, so you can let those go. And so if you know your purpose and you're on that mission, that passion of following your purpose, things will fall into place properly. We're going to hit bumps. But it's like the beautiful mountains of Vermont. There's up and downs, and you got to understand that. So you surround yourself with the people that believe in your purpose, in the same passion that you have for life.
So that would be the number one thing. Now everybody talks about purpose or true north. Yeah. It's pretty hard to figure out. Is there a trick to figuring out what your purpose is?
I don't know if there's a trick. I think that's a great question because we don't teach it in schools. It's something that doesn't seem to be important to teach our kids.
Hey, Spartans, you're going to get a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look at your podcasters here. We're in Boston. We're shooting podcast episodes, and we've just been having a conversation about SigMatic. They are a sponsor of the podcast, mushroom drinks, and we're just talking about the 4 mushrooms that they have used in their products: cordyceps, chaga, lion's mane, and reishi is the other one.
Reishi is a really cool one, Ganoderma, right? And good for liver detox, good for a whole bunch of things. But the thing is, these mushrooms have been used for like thousands of years. And maybe our elders and people before all these pharmaceutical maybe knew something about what was good for you. And so I love it. It's so easy to take, and it's just like delicious.
Well, and the cool thing we were talking earlier about, we keep talking about coffee, but as you found out, the cacao, or the cocoa, or the cacao, however you want to pronounce it.
As long as you drink it.
That's right. Well,
Get it done.
My wife had one the other day, and it was like the Zen one. It said like a warm hug from grandma. Yeah. Really nice way to wind the day down, right?
Yeah. I tell you, and again, you can make fun of me for a little bit for not knowing the backgrounds and the histories and all that, but I'll tell you,
Sefra, not everyone's so natural. They have ears made out of raccoon.
Mycology's cool.
All right, my point is, I've become a bit of a convert here. All right, so I'm just encouraging everyone out there in Spartan world to go out there and buy these products and give them a try, right? Because we all different backgrounds, as you said, and we're experiencing these differently. So I'm just asking everybody else to go out there, give them a try, and make up their own minds. I personally really enjoy drinking them. I feel good afterwards, and it just...
you look good.
Well, thank you very much. I'm trying. So anyway, go ahead and tell them where we can find them.
Well, before we can find it, how about where you find it in the woods? Like maybe you guys don't know, but mushrooms, if you look in the soil and you see that white fibrous thing that runs underneath all the soil, that's like basically the internet of a forest. Very good, Johnny.
There you go. I'm learning from you.
Mycelium. And I'm learning from Paul Stamets and all the great
I didn't pronounce it right either.
No, but I'm sure you did.
We don't want people out digging up mushrooms.
These guys have saved us the trouble. We don't have to go and scrape chaga off the side of a tree anymore.
But they're the decomposers of the forest, and they're the nutrient sharers, right? So mushrooms are the fruiting body, that mycelium. And like when someone needs nitrogen, it's like, hey, this tree over here has got extra. I'm going to bring it over to you. So basically, think about putting these in your body, and it's like, what nutrients are you missing? What needs to get fixed up? What needs some support?
All right.
And Spartans are always on this health train, and mushrooms are something that seems to be like such a rarefied, specified thing that has been out of kind of like the social
vogue.
Yeah. And now with people like SigMatic making this normal and cool and accessible, finally people like me, they're not like, Chagawada.
So forsigmatic.com/Spartan.
Exactly.
FOURSIGMATIC.com/Spartan.
And what code can they use, Johnny?
If they use the code Spartan, they'll get 15% off all Four Sigmatic products.
Come chaga with us.
Nice.
We have one more thing we want to talk about in today's break. I want to talk to Tom from Spartan Life. So I know there's a ton of resources that you oversee that have to do with what Spartans can do to live better, and I think you had some good stuff for us this week.
Spartan SGX coach Mike Diebler, host of OCR Underground podcast, gives us some great tips specifically about increasing efficiency when it comes to our workouts. Two that I like because I use them in my own personal workout world. One, get creative with shorter workouts. Not every workout needs to be an hour long, 2 hours long. I get my workouts done in 30 minutes. And that segues into the other piece, which I like, is to time your workouts. So I know I have 30 minutes. I have a routine that fits within 30 minutes. You get it done by timing it, and you're not wasting time.
If there was one essence to that article about being more efficient in their workouts, what would that be?
Find your workouts anywhere. We don't always have to do them in a gym. We don't always have to do them at a specific time. But, hey, there's stairs to be climbed. There's push-ups to be done. There's burpees to be done, obviously. And you can do them anywhere, anytime.
So no excuses. Well, thanks, Tom. That's good stuff. And I'll see you next week.
It is, and you ask people, what do you want to do with your life? And it's not, instead of what do you want to do, it's like, who are you? And where do we got to take the time as a society to start asking ourselves, who am I? And what are my gifts? Do I like to talk? Do I like to teach? Do I like to read? Do I like to work with my hands? Not do I want to be a doctor or a lawyer, and then putting yourself in that narrow window or that channel, but find out who you are. I don't know where to get that there, but to surround yourself with people that believe in it, because that's the same problem with climbing and all these other things is exactly where you're saying. Everybody's talking about that, find that purpose, but it's something even more special than that.
I've heard one question you could ask yourself is, what would I do if I had all the money in the world and I could do anything?
Yep, exactly.
Another person said, well, what would you do if you were going to die at the end of the day?
Right.
But this third question was the most interesting to me. What would you do if you knew it would fail?
Right.
Right? Because if you knew it would fail, but you do it anyway,
right,
that means you must really love that thing.
There was a great man that said you got to have all these, what do you really need to succeed? And you got to have passion. You got to have purpose.
Yeah.
You got to, if you have all those things, if you could really take the time to sit down with somebody who cares and find out what your purpose is, and then everything else just really starts to blossom.
I had somebody say to us on this podcast, everybody should have their own personal board of directors.
Yeah.
Right? So find 3 or 4 people that are wise and come from different parts of life, and you could bounce stuff off them. You'd be surprised. People want to help.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
You ask people to help. They generally help.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because people are generally nice, and a lot of people don't really understand that people are nice, and they do want to. I agree. Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. You got to have that balance. You got to have that. I'm blessed. I have my wife. And, she just keeps me in check. And I knew my wife for 10 days, and she was part of my purpose. I knew her for 10 days, and I asked her to marry me. We went through as a drill sergeant and went through special ops. I went to mountaineering school. We own a business together, and we're going to celebrate 40 years here.
Wow, amazing.
So, yeah, but that's that balance, right?
Yeah, and you think being intimate with the outdoors helps?
For me, it does. And I see it in a lot of people. Yeah, so, times get struggling. You kind of lose your focus, You just go do a rock climb.
What if it's raining?
Well, there's nothing wrong with it still. I mean, I go outside still. I'll go on a canoe trip. I'll still go on a mountain bike ride in the rain.
What if it's cold?
That's a great time to go for a hike.
What if it's snowing? I mean, I'm just laying out all the excuses I hear every day.
Exactly. But they're just excuses. If I'm going to go, I'm going to go. It just makes the event more. Right?
More interesting. It's non-negotiable, right? You gotta go outside. I had this is gonna sound silly to many listeners. We had 8 dogs on this farm. Mm-hmm. It's a long story how we ended up with 8 dogs, but I got to watch them almost as if they were in a laboratory. And when they stayed in the house too long, they started to go crazy.
Right.
And then it occurred to me, wait a minute, we're animals,
Exactly.
just like dogs.
Yeah.
Right? And they had fun in the rain. They had fun in the snow. They just had to get outside and run and reconnect.
Right. Even with the kids today, the way they are, not your kids are amazing, but even with the kids, sometimes in my grandchildren, I was like, we're going to go outside. And a couple of winters ago, my grandchildren were up and they were on their iPads. And I'm like, no, we're going outside. It's like, it's cold. I'm like, and they say, well, we don't have sleds. I said, well, I got a canoe. Well, what do you mean we got a canoe? I got a canoe and a kayak. Let's pull it up the mountain and we're sliding down. And they're like, no way. And we did it. And all they did is laugh the whole time. You know, so once you got them out there, it's like, you just let loose and be real again.
Yeah, we're all stuck in concrete and cubicles and desks, and it's probably killing us.
I think so. I mean, that's one of the beauties. Like you said here, Pittsfield, Vermont, I've been blessed to travel a lot of places in the world like a lot of people have, but this Vermont place really is beautiful.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
We're probably not covering a typical podcast here because Steve and I, if you're listening, are sitting out on the farm and we could just sit here all day and talk. It's pretty nice. You've been in the woods for a long time. What have you learned out in the wilderness that we could apply to our own lives to make ourselves better?
Well, I'd say one of them is as I get into woods, and sometimes I feel like I'm being overwhelmed, to just sit and listen and look around me to see what's going on and to get regrounded. And so many times in my job or with kids, that'll same thing will happen, and I'll just and all of a sudden I'll hear the wind blow, and it's like that's what it's telling me. And I learned that in the woods. Sit down and just relax and look around and see what your options are, and you can it just works out pretty well. So that's one big one, to just take a step back once in a while and let life and nature kind of unfold for you. Two is that we can really do a lot, and we just get boxed into what we think we can do, and people say it all the time, but when you're in the woods, if giving up, it's just not an option. And so you could take that, you can give up, but then you're going to die. A lot of, if you put yourself in that situation, and some people do, just lay down and die and end up dying of shock or hypothermia. So giving up sometimes failing's an option, but giving up's not an option, And I think I really learned that more from the climbing than from the woods, that failing's an option, and I'm not a bad person, and I didn't do anything wrong. So I didn't apply that to my life and my job and where I want to go in my career. Is that failing's an option, but giving up sometimes is just not an option.
Getting to the top is optional. Getting down is mandatory.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And what's the third one?
I think sometimes we just get all of a sudden wrapped up in so many things, and this is bad and this is bad. But my goodness, this is a beautiful world we live in. And there are so many simple, beautiful things that are happening. And we just got to take the time to appreciate that and how good we got it.
We do have it good right now.
Right now, we do.
You're awesome. Thank you, sir.
You are too.
Yeah, that was great.
So what an interesting interview, right?
Yeah,
I mean, anybody notice how calm Joe was during that interview?
Very. And
Sitting in his backyard.
You'll also notice Joe's not here. He is here. He's going to be here in a minute. But that was as calm and cool as I've ever seen Joe.
Right. But it's funny because, as we know, Joe is...
Speak of the devil.
Here he comes right now.
Joe now.
Here he comes out. Looking strong, Joe. You're looking good.
We're chuckling because we know something you don't know yet, and that is that Joe just came from a root canal.
It fucking hurts.
He is a trooper.
It really hurts. I mean, they go way up in there. I'm seeing two heads.
It's me and Tim. We're twins. We're twinsies. Yeah, no, Joe, you're a trooper. You're a trooper to be here.
Lulek is awesome. I could have used Lulek in the dentist chair.
Well, yeah, obviously, you know Steve, right? You guys go back?
He's
like he's worked with your kids? And
fantastic.
How'd you meet him?
Met him in Vermont. Wants to live in Vermont, so chose that lifestyle. Owns a rock climbing gym, and then just crushes it with this whole survival skills thing. I mean, I got New York City, Boston, L.A. families that are saying, "Can we send our kids? We want them to get trained with Steve." So my kids think they are on the third year. They'll be watching this years from now and saying, "You lied to us." But they're on the third year of survival training. When they get to level 5, they're able to go. survive in the woods on their own. I don't know if that's actually going to happen.
That's going to happen. I'll take them.
But you're going to find out.
We're going to find out. They either come out or they don't.
yeah. Oh, but really cool philosophies. I mean, he's such an easygoing guy. I love that he said, just getting out there in the first place is the first thing. We spend so much time inside, indoors, in unnatural settings.
Here's a question for the audience. Many times throughout a day or a week or a month, you're driving on the road, and there's trees along the road, right?
Yeah.
And there's woods and mountains. How uncomfortable would it be for anybody out in the audience listening or watching to stop the car, park it, and to just head out into the woods?
Well, for Sefra, it's second nature.
I've seen Sefra do that.
All of you guys.
I have
all
seen
do that. Military and race director of Death Race.
we get out of the car, go over to the woods for a totally different reason.
No, but absolutely, you're right though. Like most people will never do that in their life. It's all engineered surfaces, right?
Well,
It's all engineered, and I think it's scary.
Yeah.
I think for most
How can
people,
that
Well,
be
it
scary?
is.
Well,
Well, I mean, the woods is the unknown. Any environment
I
that you're
think
not.
this
go
is
out in the
scary.
woods,
Listen,
I'm in
I-
the urban environment. And this is,
I agree with you. You came in here last night. I said, don't come during the night. And then you're knocking on the door, and there's 3 guys from the street talking to you. It's a different environment than what you're used to. It's always scary when you
what,
enter
like
a new...
I'll snuggle with the coyotes and the hyenas, but guys outside the door are pretty scary. No, I'm just saying, like, it's only been, I don't know, a couple hundred years where the paradigm has shifted that, like, oh, I'm so comfortable in this toxic, commercialized, halogen light garbage. And then everyone's like, I feel safe here. And I'm like, I can't breathe. And this is disgusting. I don't get it. It's, where did it go? Where it's like, hey, humans, guess what? Nature's forever. This is all just made up. And you know what? I know people are like...
as she's talking, I'm visualizing, like, what if I had to go to the dentist in her world?
Yeah, that's
would've
called
been
like
like
a
a rock.
string.
I can tell you.
A rock and you throw it off the thing.
Her and Steve Lulek? Oh, my God.
No, but I love Steve Lulek, and he says... Well, he's a guy who says, okay, I love what he said about the book. Yeah, you can read all the books you want, but the book doesn't make any sense out in nature because you need to have, like, how much is your training out in nature where it's like, oh, celestial navigation, oh, just guiding by intuition or walking through the woods. You learn these things by being out there, right? You guys all know what I'm
Yes.
talking about.
No,
All of
but
you spend so
but
much
nowadays the
time in the
military
think we're
plugs
having
in
an
and has
argument. We're all
satellites.
agreeing.
Well, you guys are like, people think that the city is normal.
I am saying that every environment
Disgusting.
offers challenges to people who, if you're not from that environment.
Oh, my
So people
God.
from urban
but-
areas don't like city and vice versa, or aren't comfortable
Hey,
because
all
it's
humans
unknown.
come from, look at
I
Orgel.
just found out I had Orgel in my pocket.
There you go.
This is, like, unbelievable.
Are you not? But you're putting
It's
it.
literally like I just
I know a
found-
natural remedy
But
from
this
the
is
earth
incredible
to
survival
make
training.
Orgel.
You, you work with whatever you have, and Joe
put it
just
on the wrong
happened to have
side.
Orgel in his
I put it on-
pocket.
You put it on the wrong
Utilize
side.
the resource.
Your tooth is on your left side, right? You're over there.
I
So-
put it on the wrong side.
Saber tooth.
So I'm just going to pull a couple of threads together here and say, but what's interesting with this is that, we are people who have had the good fortune to adapt and to be out there in nature and to find reasons to be. A lot of people aren't. And, it's funny, a lot of people come to Spartan Race
So
because...
find a reason.
Well, but because their life is cubicles, their life is subways, their life is processed cereal. And this is an opportunity to go out and get dirty, get in the mud, use their body for things they were meant to. And Steve's a guy who's, creating opportunities for other people to take it to a whole other level, to come out of the office setting, to come out of the urban setting.
Yeah, he's a
those
bridge.
You need those leaders.
He's a bridge.
He's a bridge. That's a great word. He's a bridge.
Yeah.
More
Yeah,
of a-
but I was more impressed though that he was talking about pace.
Yep.
And that everything has an energy,
cadence.
and a flow, and a cadence to it. And it was interesting because you've interviewed different gurus and monks and everybody else.
He is a guru.
But just from him talking to you, you actually physically seem to relax.
Oh, my God.
Now
Leaning
you were
back
in
in the
your
chair,
you
yeah.
were in your backyard in the barn, sitting in the Adirondack chair. It was probably 70 degrees out, so it was probably a very relaxing day. Anyway.
But I think there's
But
something
I've
deeper,
seen you in that
something deeper-
environment
yeah,
before.
something deeper than that. Right?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think he basically
I know what it is.
put some
Like a little-
some kung fu on you.
I know what it
and-
is.
What is
No.
it, Sefra?
Okay, well, it's like people that spend time out in nature and the pattern recognition. Obviously, I've been in the city a little while because I'm like...
Wound up like a top.
Yeah, no, but the thing is when you're out in nature, okay, the baseline, our bodies are 70% water or something like that, right? And the
80, right.
molecular chemistry of your body, all right, it exudes like concentric rings, like throwing a rock in the water. And actually, how the tides respond to the moon? Well, so does our body, and like Steve Lulek's a moon of goodness because why? Because he knows the patterns of nature and he chills on that frequency. And you guys can all call me a hippie, but blessings to whatever your journey is because it's actually real.
The dentist was a moon of
And
hell.
remember, it's all about being calm.
I'm just so sick of people
You're-
being like,
you're
oh,
aggressively
nature
calm.
is for hippies.
All right,
It's
bottom
like,
line
well,
is
you
get
know
out in
what?
the woods.
Yeah.
And then when you do get back to a computer, tune in
Yeah.
for...
Yes.
Plant a tree. You don't need to be in the
Hey,
woods.
to join us for more great guests like Steve Lulek, go to Spartan.com/podcast. Subscribe on iTunes, on YouTube, anywhere you get your podcast. Just make sure you come back so we have great guests week after week after week. Toodles.
Toodles.
Thank you for watching another epic story of success. If you like our message, please share Spartan Up with your friends and subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you catch our show, maybe in the woods. Spartan Up is brought to you by Spartan Race. To find a race near you, visit Spartan.com.